Hey, what's up, guys? It's the Pretty Boy Offense. My name's Saj, and we are going to do our Week 10 preview of this week's NFL games. Some really interesting games this week. I feel like I say that every week, but yeah, now that like playoff positions are starting to take shape, all the rankings and stuff like that are starting to make sense. The games get more and more interesting because each game has like more and more impact in terms of shared opponents between teams that need tiebreakers, how divisions are starting to shape up. So as we just go through the year, these games are always going to be more interesting. And yeah, without like taking too much time, let's start. And I think a good place to start is with the Thursday night football game tonight, Ravens versus Miami. So I'm just going to touch on like some interesting topics. And with regards to this game, I think the most interesting topic is with the health of Tua. I know it's his like middle finger that's hurting, and it's like affecting whether he's going to play in the game or not. I think this game really changes if Tua's playing or not. I mean, not a big surprise there, but when your penciled in starting quarterback isn't playing, obviously it's going to affect it. But we've just seen that Jacoby Brissett, as much as like I do appreciate him as a backup, he hasn't really been able to take advantage of the weapons on Miami the way that you would kind of like a backup to. Like when Fitzpatrick was the backup, he was still able to throw the ball down the field. Jacoby Brissett just doesn't have that in his arsenal, and it's really holding back this Miami offense. It was one of the things holding back this Miami team in general. I think a lot of issues are happening there, some behind the scenes stuff, some coaching stuff, but yeah, so that's going to be the one big thing to monitor. In terms of Survivor, I'd stay away from this game with regards to like picking it. I just think if Tua is playing, can Tua take advantage of a relatively soft Ravens secondary? Yes, for sure. The Ravens secondary has given up like the second most like yards after catch, which is so concerning because this team is like built on a strong secondary, and I know that's because of all the injuries and stuff. But when you see guys like Waddle out there just totally capable of taking advantage of any space or anything like that, you just get the flashbacks of what kind of Jamar Chase did to this defense too. So that's why I want to stay away from this in the world that Tua does play. In terms of the Ravens side of it, you're going to see Lamar just do what Lamar does. I think Miami, the only way that they can really manage what the Ravens are going to do on offense is by playing like the two deep coverage, taking away those over the top throws that Lamar's been trying to hit all year. And just when you do that, Lamar showed in his last game, he's going to run and take everything underneath. So it's a double-edged sword. What do you choose to stop? It has to be the passing game. I think Miami's fast enough as a secondary or like your linebackers and stuff like that to try and like tame Lamar, but the minute you give him the stuff over the top, you see Marquise Brown's playing like a great receiver this year. So yeah, you have to take away this top stuff. I think the Ravens win this, but like I said, wait for the Tua information, figure out if he's playing or not. But in terms of Survivor, there's like other games we can pick, but I do think the Ravens win this. All right, the next game I want to talk about is Vikings versus Chargers. This is a game I would have been really interested in if there wasn't some like messy headlines kind of fogging up like the actual quality of this game. And to start, there's some Dalvin Cook stuff that came out this week. I won't really talk about it here. This isn't what this channel's about, but some stuff that could affect the locker room, affect his head and stuff like that. So that's the Cook issue is one thing, but then the second issue is some COVID issues. One of the players had to be hospitalized due to complications from COVID, so there's a big testing sweep going through the Vikings organization right now with who are the at-risk players, who's going to be affected, who's like a high-risk contact and stuff like that. And we're starting to see certain players actually get ruled out of the game already. And that really sucks for the Vikings because they're a team that keeps games close. I kind of talked about like what their game plan is. And outside of their game against the Ravens, where they actually had a lead in the first like couple quarters and stuff, the Vikings have been a fourth quarter team to turn it on, staying close with teams most of the time. But then their run backs at the very end of the game are like, usually coming up short and they're losing. And this just doesn't help. When you're losing good players like that, that sucks. Especially against a team like the Chargers who have so many weapons on offense. Now we talked about how Justin Herbert had issues going down the field last game, and if he wants to be as successful as he was early in the season, he needs to throw the ball downfield. He needs to hit Mike Williams. He needs to use Josh Palmer a bit more in terms of just keeping defenses honest with them so Mike Williams can get some space. Keenan Allen needs to stop just doing out routes. I know he's like a super efficient route runner, but you have to start challenging these teams down the field, especially teams like the Vikings who have, not the best cornerback situation. Patrick Peterson's been up and down when he's played, so definitely something you have to take advantage of. And with this Staley mentality of going for it on fourth downs and stuff like that, you have this super really intriguing contrast to Mike Zimmer, who's one of the most conservative play callers in the NFL. I shouldn't even say play callers, but just in terms of like fourth downs, 2-point conversions and stuff like that. Zimmer's very old school. He's very conservative in that sense. So just from a football standpoint, really interesting matchup there with these coaches. But I really think the Chargers should just take it away. But like I said, the one thing to monitor is the health and availability of Vikings players. It might be a nice week to take the Chargers. If the Vikings are down a bunch of players, you just get the easy win there. So I do have the Chargers winning this. So next game we can talk about is Eagles-Broncos. Not like a super intriguing game from the like NFL landscape. I think a lot of people have kind of put aside the Broncos now. They had that early start to the season where they 3-0, kind of looked like they could have been something, especially with all the talent on that team. But I think the narrative for the Broncos has kind of changed to, okay, well, what are they going to do in the offseasons to make sure that they capitalize with this talent? Teddy Bridgewater has shown he is Teddy Bridgewater, and he's not the guy to capitalize on a lot of good game scripts and stuff like that. He's just a decent quarterback that can make completions, but he's not going to win you a game. And that might be just what you need against a team like the Eagles, right? The Eagles, they've shown that they're a run-first team. They've shown that Jalen Hurts can take advantage of some garbage time stuff, but they're not a very good football team, and especially in terms of just like getting wins. So I think the Broncos with their secondary will eliminate any the little chance that the Eagles had of passing in this game. And then when we start talking about what the Broncos D-line can do, I think they'll be able to cause enough havoc to slow down an already slow Eagles offense. And as long as Teddy can just make the right throws, this will be good for him. Steady pressure against an Eagles defense is perfect because you'll just be able to, field goals, touchdowns. Almost every drive should be converted into, an attempt in the red zone, especially when you're as competent as the Broncos, not extraordinary, but competent. And that's all you need to be a team like the Eagles, who are one of the worst in the league. So really like the Broncos to beat the Eagles. All right, next game, Saints versus Titans. So this is a really interesting game just because of the narrative around both teams. The Titans right now, they are... So the Titans game versus the Rams was really interesting. I'm going to talk about this game a little bit more because I feel like there's a lot of meat in this that we need to dissect in terms of what's coming up. So the Titans have had one of the hardest schedules in the league leading up to this point. And then right on the precipice of going into now the easiest schedule in the league, they lose Derrick Henry. So the question was, okay, well, how do you bounce back? How do you fill that hole? How do you, have, as an offense, now go through the rest of the season losing like one of the best players in the NFL? And they go and they win the game against the Rams, but it wasn't on the back of incredible offensive performance. It was due to the defense just being able to smother Stafford and capitalize on those opportunities, giving Tannehill short fields, giving him the opportunity to really make moves. And then you see A.J. Brown played great, but he could have had a better game as well. Adrian Peterson, had his moments as well, showed that he's a competent replacement, which is always good. But the identity for the Titans now is this coached up defense, which, being coached up is great because that's the kind of magic you want to catch when you want to make playoff runs. But the Titans now are sitting as number one in the AFC, have the easiest schedule in the NFL to see out the rest of the season. Games versus the Jags, games versus Houston. So there's going to be opportunities to take the Titans in Survivor later on. They have a real chance of just securing up the number one seed in the NFL, in the AFC, sorry. And that'll go a long way to just helping them in the playoffs as well. But what we want to see now is, okay, can Tannehill take advantage with a beat-up O-line? He's been one of the best quarterbacks from a clean pocket, but he hasn't had a clean pocket more recently. So the Titans' game plan for the rest of the year is just get healthy, get in playoffs, and then let Tannehill, in a clean pocket, use A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and potentially an Adrian Peterson if he lasts the rest of the season too. So there's no guarantees when you're a running back that old coming in halfway. So yeah, I think it's a really important like milestone game for the Titans, because if they can go in and beat up a Saints defense that is missing some pieces with some injuries right now, not to mention their offense is missing, potentially going to miss Kamara. They're trying out running backs as well this week. This is a really good like test for the Titans, I think, because the Rams, like I said, was a good test, but I think you can chalk that up, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to the Titans. That was just as much a bad game by the Rams, like bad decision making, some bad calls by McVay as well, questionable calls by McVay against the Titans team. So let's really see what the Titans are right now. And then on the Saints side, it's, they have Trevor Siemian playing quarterback. It's just what really is the season. You saw Cam Newton signed with the Panthers, so there's really going to be no quarterback solution. They're going to ride out Siemian and Hill. So I don't really think that's a vote of any confidence for like anybody who's interested in taking the Saints in any form or fashion, whether that's like Survivor or, on your like betting tickets and stuff like that. And then you couple that with the Kamara injury, some of the defensive injuries, and just they can't really, with Siemian or Hill, you can't really have an effective game plan against a Titans team that, at the end of the day can just unload it to these really talented wide receivers. So I take the Titans in that game, but I think in terms of Survivor, there's going to be better opportunities to take the Titans later in this year with this super easy schedule. Okay, next game, KC versus Raiders. Now, this is like another really interesting game because in the past, we've seen the Raiders play KC really close when nobody had like the formula to stop this KC offense. The unstoppable like Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce offense. And the Raiders have always played them close. They've always done that with like single high looks and stuff like that. And then going back this year, they've still playing, I have here 80% of their snaps in single high looks. And it's going to be interesting. Are they going to do that again to stop Patrick Mahomes? Or are we going to end up in a situation here where they're going to try and change it up? Because we've seen the way that other teams, and I talked about this in the this past week review, how other teams have stopped KC, and that's dropping more men to coverage, really making it hard on Patrick Mahomes when he's running left to right to cover the, those crazy passes where he's running to his right, throws it to Tyreek Hill because he's just tracking him to the sideline as well. It's going to be interesting because we've seen multiple teams do that against Patrick Mahomes and be successful this year. Nobody's really done what the Raiders had done and been successful. So do the Raiders switch it up and try and do that? I don't know. Another big thing is the Raiders never had Max Crosby playing as well as he was in those past matchups. Now he's playing absolutely incredible, one of the highest pressure rates in all of the NFL. He's going up against Lucas Niang, who's a terrible like offensive lineman. So I think I would take the Raiders to win this game, but we've kind of outlined a few other games that we really like. So there's really no reason to take the Raiders here if you're thinking about them for Survivor. But yeah, I like the Raiders to beat the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, even though they got that win against the Packers, they didn't do anything in that game that showed that they turned the page over, became a better offense or anything. That was just a result of Jordan Love being in the game and not Aaron Rodgers. So, and even then, like if Crosby can hit some kicks, the script for that game is so different. The way that game looks is so different, right? Okay, so moving on from that game, is there anything I want to talk about with the Chiefs? I don't think there is. There's like some rumors with Odell Beckham Jr. with like the Saints and the Chiefs and stuff. It's Thursday already. If he signs, he's not going to be playing. If he signs with any team, I guess it depends on the team. But this next game I'll talk about, he's talking about like maybe going to either of these teams, Packers versus Seahawks, which is, I think, a really interesting game. But it's kind of lost some of its luster just due to the situation with the quarterbacks in this. Russell Wilson should be coming back to play, but he showed on his Instagram he just got the pin taken out. So how healthy is he really? I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is going to be okay to play on Saturday after the COVID protocols, but a week of no practicing and stuff like that, having to learn the game plan just virtually, step in on the Sunday and just be able to play. Will he be able to do it? If it was against any other team, I'd say there might be something iffy there, but he's a veteran of the league. The Seahawks defense is super bad. His like wide receivers are all relatively like healthy, so he should just be able to come in there and exploit this defense. So going to be a good game, I think. More of my concern in terms of the QB play is Wilson. So it's the DK Metcalf fallout, the Tyler Lockett fallout. Is his finger going to be able to, hold up for a game? We don't know if the swelling's all down, what they're going to be doing for it. It's a very quick turnaround. I know he's a fast healer. Historically, he's been a fast healer from a lot of injuries. So, yeah, I don't know. But I think for the most part, it's just the biggest question is Rodgers versus the secondary, and can Rodgers on some rest/rush debate be able to take the secondary out? I think he can. So yeah, I like the Packers over the Seahawks for a survivor pick in this. Okay, so another big NFC game is the Ravens versus 49ers. This is the Monday night game. Normally Monday night games are a little more premier than this, but this one, I think it falls by the wayside when you just see the situation of the 49ers the past few weeks. I ragged on Shanahan and what he's doing just because I think Jimmy Garoppolo's played fine. I think he's played good. I think he's doing what Jimmy Garoppolo can do, but it's not enough to win games. So at what point do you put Trey Lance in? But then I said, if Trey Lance hasn't been in already, outside of when Garoppolo was hurt, Trey Lance must not be showing what you want to see in practice, because I feel like the rope or the leash on him should be so short at this point. You have an option on the bench, but yeah, it's kind of rough. So Rams hands down, I think, win this. More confident in the coaching here, more confident in the health of the team. Von Miller should be healthy, so he'll be playing in this game too, coming in for some packages just to rush the passer. It's really nice when you have a pocket passing quarterback that you'll be going against, and makes just coming in for really simple schemes and stuff like that where you're still learning much easier. Pad some stats that way, get some pressures. So yeah, and then my last thing here is, the 49ers just need to figure out the QB situation. And it's really concerning because there's an idea that there's a Shanahan narrative right now. I really don't buy into any of that. Is he a good coach? What's his record? His record with Jimmy Garoppolo has been good. Just the question's always been the ceiling of the team. And I still think when Jimmy Garoppolo's in there and the rest of the team's firing, that's fine. But you're just trying to see now where I think some of the weapons aren't what they need. I think they kind of, overextended on the way they used their running backs, and some of their wide receivers are kind of getting put to the wayside and stuff like that. And their defense was historical when they made that Super Bowl run and lost eventually to the Chiefs. But when your defense isn't, that good, it's the same as the Chiefs, right? That I was talking about earlier in the year. When the rest of your team is kind of falling apart, you really need to address those holes, as opposed to just hope for miracles to fix all these problems. And you're just seeing that it looks like they're kind of sitting on their hands a bit. So yeah, the 49ers is a team in transition, and it looks like a relatively rough transition because you're just missing out these years on some of these nice contracts that you have. So yeah, I'll take Rams over 49ers. Tampa Bay versus the Washington football team. Really shouldn't be an interesting game. There's going to be some talk about Taylor Heineke versus Tampa Bay from last year's playoffs, where it was a bit of a coming out party for him. Kind of convinced a lot of people that he's capable of potentially being a quarterback in the NFL. And then we get this season, and he's shown that, that one game is not enough for him to justify being a starter. They should have made some moves. I was talking about how they should have got Cam Newton, and they didn't. He went to the Panthers now. So I think Washington's really just given up on the season, and it's a shame to see that. A really interesting thing I've noticed, I was really critical of the Washington pass rush in the beginning of the year. They've stepped it up. They've started their pressure rates have gone up. They're getting to the quarterback more. I think they're still missing Montez Sweat, but the pass rush is playing so much better right now, so they figured that out. But a theory that I kind of like, and a lot of other people like that talk about football, is, does your pass rush help your secondary? If you can throw a quarterback off his throwing base, upset him in the pocket, get him on the move, does that help your cornerbacks? Does that help them in their success rate of defecting balls are like a lot easier to defend, just because the quarterback's not working in a vacuum at that point. And when the pass rush was bad for the football team, the secondary was bad. And now that the pass rush is good for the football team, the secondary has still been bad. So I want to kind of just chalk that up to the personnel on the football team secondary. But I'm going to keep an eye on that. That might be like an end of season stat just to see what the actual discrepancy is in terms of like how much they graded out more like positive on the defensive line versus like their secondary. I know all those stats are always like constantly changing and evolving like every week. So just something I'm going to keep in mind, but that's kind of like blowing up that whole theory I had right now, but it's just, one team. So I think Tampa Bay should handle this easily. One thing I have here of note is the Tampa Bay injuries. So AB is still in a walking brew. Gronkowski's still out with some rib injuries. I think Chris Godwin is, as of today, Thursday, missed practice because of a foot injury as well. So the Bucs had signed Perriman, and Scotty Miller's coming back from injury as well. Now, but neither of those names really strike fear into a defense. But when you still have Mike Evans, Scotty Miller's like a playable piece, like on that offense, like makes relevant moves and stuff like that. So when you have those guys, it's just going to be a running back in Mike Evans' day. Scotty Miller being there is just to keep a defense honest when he's going to be running past them is going to be nice. But like I said, that secondary doesn't matter at all. So maybe he does get some balls, but I wouldn't be surprised. They're coming off like a bye as well, I'm pretty sure. So that's Tampa Bay all day. They'll beat Washington. I love Tampa Bay this week. So, yeah. Atlanta versus Dallas. So the most important thing to talk about here is I'm like shit at evaluating like O-line talent. I know good ones when I see them, and I understand bad ones when I see them, but the purgatory of in between of like who's better than what, like what's this middle ground. I don't know anything about it. I've never played the position, never really coached the position at all to like know anything about, and like evaluating it is so tough for me. But when I see a guy like Terrence Steele just become an absolute turnstile for other teams that just want to rush his quarterback and Dak Prescott, like I know he's bad. So we're going to start talking about Terrence Steele and how this game is going to be won or lost through him in terms of Atlanta. We've seen Matt Ryan can competently throw the ball some games. So I know this Dallas defense is fast. I know this Dallas defense is opportunistic, but I've also talked about how they do give up yards. And Matt Ryan seems like the type of guy, veteran quarterback, where if you give him the space, he can fit that ball into Kyle Pitts or to Cordell Patterson or whatever he has to do to win this game. And then we start talking about the Atlanta D-line. It doesn't really matter who's there. It's who's going to be matched up on Terrence Steele and can they disrupt Dallas enough? Because that's all it took to throw them off their game against the Broncos. It's a super fair argument to just say it was just a hiccup game, just like an anomaly last week. But if there is going to be a route to Atlanta beating Dallas, it's going to be through Dallas's O-line. And we've seen it with the Colts earlier this year. When their O-line wasn't healthy, they were, losing games. Their whole game plan was changing. Jonathan Taylor was having a bad time. Carson Wentz was having like a rough time as well. And these quarterbacks that are used to playing with a really good O-line, like they're accustomed to it, and it kind of throws them off their rhythm and stuff. So it is enough to like sneak out games here and there. Do I think Dallas loses to Atlanta? No, I think Dallas still wins. But like I said, this is going to be where it's won and lost. It's going to be through this singular player and Terrence Steele and how bad he is. So keep an eye on that. Cardinals versus Panthers. Yeah, on paper, it should just be the Cardinals, right? Good team versus bad team. Great defense right now, I think, in the Panthers. But as long as their offense can't do anything, it's always going to be tough sledding. Darnold's out. He's got I think it's a scapula injury or clavicle, something like that, but he's injured. The Panthers signed Cam Newton, homecoming for him, for a 1-year deal, $10 million. So I don't think he'll be playing this week unless they have like goal line packages for him. PJ Walker's to start. So I don't think the Cardinals should be too scared at all. But the Panthers they've just been one of these teams with the Cardinals number. They always beat the Cardinals whenever they match up, whether it's playoffs, regular season. You throw the records out the door. They always kind of get the Cardinals. And something to note, Murray and Hop still missing. AJ Green back from the COVID protocol. Rondale Moore's out with a concussion. As of today, Budda Baker was out as well with a concussion. So it's kind of it's really important to note that a lot of those wide receivers are going to be missing. But if Colt McCoy's playing again, you saw that he favored throwing to Wesley. He liked Kirk a lot too. Zach Ertz is still there, which is awesome. James Conner was good catching passes when Chase Edmonds went out. So I wouldn't be too concerned with those Cardinal injuries outside of Murray. If Colt McCoy's playing, obviously it's not like a huge confidence booster. But with I think it's Brown is going to be out for the Panthers as well. His ankle's still messed up from that gator roll that Mac Jones put on him. So I think you can confidently take the Cardinals this week. Take the Cardinals, sorry. All right, so we're getting into the last few games here. Jags versus Colts. Interesting game, I think, from the perspective of the Jags just beat the Bills. But okay, so here's how it's interesting. So the Jags beat the Bills because Josh Allen played like bad Josh Allen. Now, if there was any other quarterback in this league that could play like bad Josh Allen, that quarterback is Carson Wentz, right? It's bad Carson Wentz is the closest thing you're going to find to a bad Josh Allen in the world. So, yeah, if they have bad Carson Wentz, then the Jags have a chance of winning. But like I just mentioned it before with Dallas, once this Colts O-line got healthy 2 games ago, you've just seen the steady pressure that they've been able to put on other teams. Jonathan Taylor's running better. Michael Pittman's emerging as a legitimate weapon when Carson Wentz has the time to throw and stuff like that. It's really nice to see because it's kind of these things that we expected and we had to wait for it, and we weren't even sure if when we were seeing bad Carson Wentz if this was going to be enough. And now that we see them actually picking up the steam, playing well, this is great because the Colts are becoming a team that we can become more comfortable with in Survivor. And the Jags, I think the Jags are still the Jags. Just got the Bills super fortunately when Josh Allen was playing bad. So Colts versus Jags is a really good pick this week. I think I picked the Colts. Okay, so Bills versus Jets. Mike White's playing, which is nice, but again, this is good team versus bad team. I'm pretty sure Zach Wilson's going to be out longer than the team expected. They announced that. So the Bills are going to be on the bounce back, trying to get back in the win column. And this is one of the best teams in the AFC. They shouldn't be dropping 2 games like this. If they do, there's going to be serious concerns. But no, I think you're going to see good Josh Allen, good Bills, and the Jets. We've been talking about them, one of the worst teams in the league right now. They're a little better with Mike White over Zach Wilson, but still not good enough to beat the Bills. Lions versus Steelers. Interesting game. I actually think this is a game that the Lions can win. If the Lions need to play every game that they play the way they played the Rams. And they talked about how that was their Super Bowl almost. The way they were play calling, the way they were pulling out all the stops, trying to score points. If the Lions did that consistently in a lot of games, teams would expect it. But you would have a better chance at winning when you start playing conservatively, when you start kind of getting in your own head about being professional in terms of punting when you should be punting and stuff like that. You give away these games against a team like the Steelers, who's predicated on the run, and Ben Roethlisberger's throwing the ball a bit better lately, but the Lions should be right there. And I know the Steelers have a nice record, but this is an opportunity that the Lions can win. I would stay away from this game. Like I said, I think Jared Goff has enough. I think TJ Watt is a great pass rusher and stuff, but they can definitely go toe to toe with the Steelers. I think Penei Sewell's moving back over to on TJ Watt's side, so that'll be rough. That probably one of the worst matchups of the week, but Lions Steelers, I'd stay away from it. I think the Steelers win, but I would just stay away from this game. I could see it going the other way. And Browns Patriots. So this is an interesting game in terms of what Baker will we see. Odell's officially gone. Baker seems more confident with his downfield throws when he doesn't have to worry about making Odell Beckham Jr. happy. What does Bill Belichick do to Baker Mayfield? I think he's going to throw out some complex looks to confuse him. If you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us on the run. And Bill Belichick will have him obviously a disciplined defense like he always does. I think, though, at this point, the Browns have something to prove. The Browns have ground to catch up on, and they're going to with this game. The Browns have, I think, the best roster in the league when they're healthy, and they are right now. And I don't think Mac Jones is capable of making the big time throws that's necessary in a third and fourth quarter to keep his team in it or to try and steal a win back. Baker Mayfield also has those. I'm a little reserved in saying that about Baker Mayfield as well, but I trust his running backs, his wide receivers, his O-line and stuff way more than I just trust the Patriots team to keep them in the game all game, right? So yeah, take the Browns in that game. So that's my week preview, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I touched on some storylines or some statistics that maybe you didn't think about at first. I'll do my love and hate games tomorrow so that you guys can follow along with your survivor picks. And yeah, good luck with your picks, guys. Have a good one.